Hi everyone, today we're going to be working on IXL assignment C8S, area of triangles. When we're dealing with area of any shape, it's important that we have our formulas written down because a lot of our area formulas are similar to one another, and so we don't want to get them confused. So here we have our formula for the area of a triangle. I encourage you to maybe have a specific page in your notebook where it's all like a reference sheet where it's all of your different formulas so you can easily go to that if you forget or just want to double check that you're using the right one. So our formula for the area of a triangle is A for area is equal to 1/2 base times height, where our base is noted here at the bottom. And then a lot of times our height is called the perpendicular height because unless we have a right triangle, we are going to have a couple diagonal sides here. And so it's not easy for us to measure those diagonals. And so we have our perpendicular height noted here with this diagonal line going from the base all the way to the tippy top. And that will give us the true and accurate height of our triangle. Let's just look at a quick example here before we switch over to IXL. But when you're working with area of a triangle, we have our formula, and then you need to look at the information you're given. We can see that the base here is 10. We have a height of 7. So then we're going to substitute. We're going to plug this information into our formula. 1/2 times your base of 10 times your height of 7. And then it's multiplication all the way across. So you can either do this by hand or you can plug it right into your calculator. And when we do that multiplication, we get 35 square units. All right, now let's switch on over to IXL and do some of these problems together. And then we'll also, at the end of the video, get to some problems on what to do if you're given the area and you have to find the base or you have to find the height. So we'll go through a variety of examples here today. All right, here we are on IXL, assignment C8S, area of triangles. Let's go ahead and get started. So we are being asked to find what is the area of this triangle, and we have multiple pieces identified here. So first thing I'm going to do is write down my formula because my formula tells us what I need. So formula is 1/2 times our base times our height. Well, when I look at this triangle, I see that first thing I notice is, 3 would be my height. That's that perpendicular line. That's that vertical line that goes from the bottom to the top. I can tell that I have a height of 3. So 3 is my H. 3 is my height. And I'll write it off to the side here as well. H is 3. But I got 2 other numbers here, 5 and 6. Which one would be the base? Well, our base is going to be either, it's typically going to be a horizontal line, but your triangle could be turned, and so it could be vertical or whatever. But one thing that helps me know the 5 is not, is that's at a diagonal right there. And that 6, that's our bottom, that's our base. And so we're going to label that RB. So sometimes we do have to look carefully to make sure we select the right values for our base and our height. That base is that horizontal bottom piece. So we're good to go. Now that we've labeled our information, we're going to substitute. We're going to plug them into our formula so we can solve. So area is equal to 1/2 times our base, which is 6, times our height, which we said was 3. Now, I have pure multiplication all the way across here. 1/2 times 6 times 3. There's more than one way that you could do this problem. This one's, set up kind of easy because our base here is 6. That's a nice even number. You could probably say and do 1/2 of 6 in your head pretty easily. You could take half of 6, which would be 3. But if you don't want to do that, or if you have numbers that are a lot larger and it's more difficult to do, you could turn that fraction into a decimal because then you're able to put it in your calculator. So 1/2 as a decimal is 0 and 5/10. So you could choose to rewrite your formula, to rewrite your equation here with the decimal version instead. And now at this point, you can either do it by hand or you can do it using a calculator, but we just got to multiply all the way across. So 1/2 times 6 times 3. And what does that give us? We get an answer of 9 square miles. And they already have the label here for us. So we simply just need the 9. But our area of this triangle is 9 square miles. All right, next problem. This is kind of what I was talking about, how sometimes the base may not really be at the bottom because we've turned the image, we've turned the picture a bit. But we can still work on finding which one of these numbers is our base. So remember our formula for area of a triangle is area is equal to 1/2 base times height. So when I look at this, even though my picture's turned, I can see that we have a height of 3 centimeters because we have that dotted line there showing us that from the bottom to the very top of that triangle, it is 3 centimeters tall. It is a height of 3. If we check out our other numbers here, we have a 5, and an 8. Which one do you think would be the base? Well, our base is not going to be one of those diagonal sides. Another thing that helps us find the base is honestly the height. Because if you look here, that height is making a right angle. It is intersecting, it is touching our base. So that's another great way to find your base, is we can see that our height here goes from the top all the way to the bottom, all the way to the base. Bottom, base, both start with the letter B. So that's another great way for you to feel confident that you're selecting the right number for the base. Is that height, if it's drawn there for you, like a lot of them are, it's going to go from the base to the top. So we have a base of 8 centimeters. Now that we've identified our information, let's substitute it, plug it into our formula, and solve. So A is equal to 1/2, but I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that as a decimal. So it's a little easier to put into my calculator, times our base of 8 and our height of 3. Now we have pure multiplication all the way across. So we could go ahead and do this. So 1/2, otherwise known as the decimal 0.5, times 8 times 3 gives us an area of 12 square centimeters. Very good. All right, same problem, but a different way of seeing our image here. Because sometimes when we have looks to be an obtuse triangle, we're like, I don't have a very clear idea here of the height. It makes it pretty difficult to draw that height from the base to the tip top of the triangle. It's going to be a diagonal. So sometimes we kind of have to extend things out to really measure that height from the base to the top of the triangle. So we can see that we have, let's see, I think I've been doing my height in blue. So right here from the bottom of the triangle, even though it's extended a bit, to the top is 20 centimeters. That's our height. So then which one of these would be our base? Well, our base is going to be making that right angle. It's going to be intersecting with your height. And that would be this right here. The 30 centimeters would be our base. Let's substitute all of this into our formula. So area is equal to 1/2, or you could write it in decimal form, times our base of 30 and our height of 20. So notice that the numbers do get a little larger as you go higher up into the SMART score, but that's okay. You can do it by hand or you can use a calculator. All multiplication, let's plug that right in. So 0 and 5/10 times 30 times 20 gives us an area of 300 square centimeters. Very good. All right, at this point, we're going to get into some that are a little bit more in that challenge zone of IXL and what I'd referred to at the beginning of what do we do if we're given the area and we need to find either the base or the height. That's what we have here. We're being told that the area is 12 square centimeters, and we're being asked to find the base, but they did give us the height here. So this is one of the triangles that I was talking about. If you ever have a right triangle, it already has that height there for us. So this is the first one we've seen without that dotted line where we've had to draw the height in because we already have that right angle for us since it's a right triangle. Now, when we have problems like this, the math that you do is a little different, but the steps are honestly the same because the first thing you do whenever you have a formula, no matter what it's a formula for, is you identify what formula you need. We're finding area of a triangle, so we need area equals 1/2 base times height. Then you identify the information that you have. So we've underlined that we have the area, we have the height, and we're trying to find the base. Now we're going to substitute, we're going to plug all of that in. Well, this time we know what the area is. We know the area is 12, so instead of having an A and having an unknown variable, we're going to put 12 in because we know that that is 12. I'm going to go ahead, rewrite this fraction as a decimal because I just like that better. But if you're fine with the fraction form, do it. And then that's being multiplied by our base, but we don't know what that is, so that stays a variable. And then it's being multiplied by our height, which is 3. So up until this point, everything's been the same. Formula, identify your information, plug it in. Now, when we solve it, the steps we have to take will be different, but it's still something that you guys can do. So we're trying to solve for B. We're trying to find B and get B by itself. Well, is there anything I can do? I see I have multiplication here, so let's go ahead and multiply what we can. Let's multiply our 1/2 or our 0 and 5/10 by our 3. Let's do that. So 12 is equal to, all right, what would be half of 3? What would be 0 and 5/10 times 3? That would be 1 and 5/10, 1.5. And then we still have our B. What do we have now? Now we have a one-step equation that we can solve. How do we solve for B? How do we get B by itself? Divide, because 1.5 is being multiplied by B. So in order to solve for B, we have to do the inverse. The inverse of that multiplication is division. So we'll divide both sides by 1 and 5/10. And that gives us the answer of 8. So our base, in order for this triangle to have an area of 12, our base would have to be 8 centimeters. All right, let's do one more like this before we close out so we can see at least a couple examples. I know this one's a little different. All right, let's do one this time where we're having to find the height. The nice thing is, even though we're finding the height instead of the base, the process is just like what we did on that last problem. So we're being told here that the area of our triangle is 3 square miles. And we can see that we have a base of 2. I'm not sure why the numbers cut off a bit on IXL, but that's a 2 right there. And then what we're trying to find, that unknown value, is our height. And we can even see that in the question here to help confirm that's what we're trying to find. So we've identified our information. Let's plug it on in. Let's substitute it into our formula. Our area, is 3 square miles. And that is equal to 1/2, or in decimal form, 0 and 5/10, times our base of 2 and our height, which is unknown. So we're going to leave that as a variable. All right, now what do we need to do? We need to solve for h. We need to find our height. I see there's some multiplication I can do. Let's simplify this first. So what would be 1/2 times 2? What would be 0 and 5/10 times 2? That would end up being 1, actually. So we're left with 1h. All right. At this point, you could look at this and recognize that if you're just left with 1h, another way to write that is just 3 equals h, because whenever you have one of a variable, you don't have to put the number there. So technically speaking, we're done. But if you didn't recognize that, no worries. You could look at this and say, well, I got to get rid of that 1. So I'm going to divide both sides by 1. 3 divided by 1 is 3. And we see that we have a height of 3 miles. All right, it is now your guys' turn to work on IXL. I bet that you guys can rock this assignment out. If you'd like to see some more examples, maybe hear it from a different point of view, IXL has some wonderful videos that they've made. So you can just click on it right there in the corner at any time that you're working on the skill, and you can watch the video that they've made and see if that helps you as well. All right, you guys got this. If you need anything, just send me an email. Otherwise, good luck. Bye.